Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
Welcome back to High School Basketball Weekly. Tim Morey, alongside of our special guest this evening, John Franzoni, former coach of the Lady Blue Devils. And John, thank you for joining us today. We're Rick Boo on special assignment, and we're just happy to have you here with us. And John, we're going to jump right into it here. Busy opening week in the high school basketball here in Berkshire County, and we'll get going with the Mounties of Mount Greylock. And Coach John Jacoby's squad has already played 3 games to start this season. They stand now at 2-1, and they opened up their season in a nice way by playing in the Franklin Tech tournament. And they opened the season by defeating Mount Everett 51-23. And the real story of that opening night game was 8th grader Tanley Drake, who led the Mounties with 16 points. And I saw her over at the Jamboree, and she's really composed for an 8th grader, John.
Yeah, I mean, when you start off your season winning on the road with an 8th grader leading the way with 16 points, you can't. I'm sure Coach Jacoby's very happy with that. And then they go down to Monument last night, which is always a tough place to play, and win in overtime. And then it was said in the article that Drake got hurt during the game, and they're missing Jackie Brennan, one of their 2 seniors. So for Coach Jacoby to lead his team to 2 wins in the first 3, all on the road, that's a great start for a young team. And last night they had sophomores scoring in overtime. You know, junior Mia Filio hitting the big game-winning basket. So great start for the Mount Greylock girls.
Yeah, they lost the Franklin Tech tournament championship game to Franklin Tech, but they bounced right back to a game you talked about, just alluded to. That's Monument Mountain. They went to Monument Mountain and won in overtime, 38-26. The story in that one was Mia Filio, who had a big 3-pointer in overtime to propel Mount Greylock to the victory. And Tanley Drake's sister, Madison Drake, also had 8 points, and they came away with the victory. So they're staying at 2-1. And you know, as we talked about before we came on the air, John, going down to Monument, that's a tough place to play anytime.
Right. We had a lot of good battles down there, and it's a tough place to play. The crowd's loud. They have good teams, good solid defense. So for Coach Jacoby and his girls to go down there and win last night with a couple of their key players injured, even more impressive to win that basketball game after you've gone on 2 long road trips to Franklin for your first 2 games. So looking forward to that jury hosting Mount Greylock girls game next week.
Yeah, we'll be covering that game. That's going to be our game of the week next week. And you'll be there with Rick Bua, and I'm hopefully be able to make it. But that's always a great matchup between those 2 local rivals. Moving along to the Lady Hornets of McCann, they opened their season Tuesday night in a loss to Mohawk. They were also a shorthanded squad as well. They lost the season opener. They got balanced scoring in that one from Brooke Reynolds and Aiden Champney, who each scored 7 points, and Hannah Boisvert had 6. They're going to open at home. Their next game is next Tuesday night against Ludlow. And McCann, interesting team, John. Both Rick and I have talked about it over the years. They have some size, Hannah Boisvert. They have some experience. It's just a question for Coach Justin Kratz, who's his first year back behind that helm, getting that squad to click a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have some great veteran leadership with Coach Kratz stepping back into the coaching ranks, coming back to coach the girls this year. And always interesting having your principal as your head coach of your basketball team too. So I know he does a great job many years with the boys program and now taking over the girls. Boys I believe, is our only senior. So that's a tough way to open at Mohawk, and it's going to be a chance for the young players to get a chance to grow up right on the court. And I'm sure Coach Kratz will have them ready for that game against Ludlow coming up.
Yeah, so he's got another challenge coming up against Ludlow, but that's their home opener, and again, that's going to be this coming Tuesday night against Ludlow. Also, another team that got its start here, the the Lady Blue Devils of Drury, John, and they had a very tough contest at Agawam, and they dropped it to Agawam 45-37. And Drury was playing shorthanded as well, missing a few of their players. They led Agawam after 3 quarters, 35-31, but Agawam had a big push in the 4th quarter to get over the hump and top Drury 45-37. Jacinta Felix, their outstanding junior guard, led Drury with 13 points. And interesting team as well. Coach Downey has a mix of younger players and some experience, but this is a relatively young Drury team, John.
Right. I mean, they're returning Brooke Bishop as a senior along with Marley Brothers, and Jacinta Felix as a junior has been playing a lot of basketball and starting, I believe, since she was a freshman. So to go down to Agawam and to lead after 3 quarters is a great accomplishment, but sometimes a young team, like you mentioned, has to learn how to win basketball games, especially on the road. So to get outscored 14-2 in that last quarter, I'm sure it gives Coach Downey some things to work on with his young team to prepare for the next game.
Right. And a player that both Rick and I have talked about on Drury, Megan McGrath, the sophomore. She's yet to appear in action this year, and that's going to be a big part of this Drury team this year. She's an excellent athlete, an excellent player, even as a sophomore. And I think Coach Downey is biding his time until hopefully she's able to return for Drury.
Right. One thing I did see last night was I think it was Delaney Hayden scored 6 points, only a first-year player. So,
right.
It's good to have those veterans like Bishop and Brothers and Felix back, but you're going to need those younger players with some experience to step up and fill those minutes that were left vacant by those graduating seniors from that successful team last year. So that'll be a key to the development of Drury this year, is how do those younger players step into bigger roles, and especially you find that out in the 4th quarter.
Well, as we just said previously, John, they're going to have their home opener. Their next game will be against Mount Greylock at home. That's the Drury girls' home opener, and you and Rick will be there to broadcast that game, Northern Berkshire Community Television. So we'll be looking forward to that one. The Hoosick Valley Hurricanes had their opener on Tuesday night, and Rick, down in Hampshire, they came away with a come-from-behind victory, 59-49. They trailed by 4 points after 3 quarters, but they got a big 4th quarter effort from their outstanding senior Taylor Garabedian when she scored 9 of her game-high 24 points in that final quarter. Hannah Shea and Haley McNeese each added 9 points. And we talked a little bit off air about the difference there with a little bit more experience by Hoosick. They trailed at 3, but they were able to put the pedal to the metal, so to speak, and come away with the victory.
Yeah, and there's a contrast, right? They go into the 4th quarter down by 4. They outscore them 23-9 to win the game. Hampshire's another tough place to play. And you have the Chargers led by 3 seniors, Garabedian, McNeese, Shea, all have great experience over their careers at Hoosick, along with their talented point guard Ashlyn LaSure, I think had 7 points.
Right.
So, you put those 4 kids on the court in the 4th quarter, they have all proven they know how to win basketball games, and they did that last night.
Well, they certainly did. As you alluded to, Hampshire, that's not an easy place to play for anybody. They have a long tradition down there, the Red Raiders, and they gave Hoosick everything they could handle on Tuesday night, but Hoosick was able to come away. And Hoosick will have their home opener, and we're going to be there tomorrow night broadcasting. That's our high school game of the week. South Hadley, the Tigers, will play Hoosick Valley. And John, these two teams have had some incredible matchups. You had a lot of experience when you were coaching at Drury with South Hadley.
Yeah, South Hadley plays that hard-nosed style. They're going to come at you full court. They're going to sprint the court into transition. Coach DeBuck likes to shoot the 3 and get out and run. So you're going to play 32 minutes of high-intensity basketball, very similar to what Hoosick does in a lot of ways. And I know Coach Frederick has modified that style a little bit based on his personality he talked about last year, but they still are capable of running the court, and of course playing that tough defense in the half court and the full court when necessary. Looking at Hoosek's schedule, they're really taking on the schedule that you want to do as a coach with a veteran team. They go on to Hampshire, they play South Hadley their next game. They got Pittsfield and Wacona come up before the holiday.
Right.
So those are all great tests for a veteran team, and it'll show early in the season where Hoosick is at. And obviously they passed their first test last night by winning at Hampshire. With that great comeback in the fourth quarter.
Right, so they're going to play, you're right, John, they play tomorrow night, they're going to play South Hadley, and then they turn around and they're right back at it. They're going to play on the 20th of December, next Wednesday night. They're going to play Wacona, and Wacona is a Division IV finalist. We did that game last year up there. That was a great one between those two programs, so we'll be looking forward to those games as the season goes along. Turning our attention to the boys' action, all the teams have gotten off to a start in boys' action. We're going to start with McCann first. The Hornets opened their season on Tuesday night with an impressive victory over Pioneer Valley Christian Academy. They won that one 63-50. And that win occurred on the road, and they were led by their outstanding senior Walt Mazza, who tallied 23 points, and Eric Rougeau also added 13 points. And this is a nice McCann squad, John. There's some real talent there.
Yeah, they got some good veteran leadership on that team. Walter Mazza stepping up with 23 points last night. Proud of that as a former Brayton student, Walter. So good to see my former kids doing well. And Walter's had some really good games for both the football and the basketball teams. And to go on the road and win at Pioneer Valley Christian, I think it said 9 of the Hornets got in the scoring column last night, led by, as you mentioned, with Rougeau with 13 and Maz with 23. So that's a great start for the McCann boys.
It certainly is, and they're playing in a league. I think they're going to do very well in John. They can compete in that league, and I think they stand. My prediction last week in our first broadcast was I thought that McCann stood a really good chance of winning their league and having a fine season, given the talent that they have returning. Mount Greylock also opened up their season up at Brattleboro, and they dropped the opener at Brattleboro 51-38. And Desmond Cobb led the way for Greylock with 20, and Noah Kane Smalls had 12. And this Greylock team, John, we talked about it last week on our opening broadcast. Senior laden last year, all those seniors are gone, so it's really a rebuilding project there,
right.
For Mount Greylock.
Yeah, you lose all those seniors. That's hard to recover from. You got a new coach this year who has impressive credentials, but still, no matter how much you have in your background, you still need to have players that have experience on the court. So it's going to be probably some learning experiences over at Greylock to start the year. Getting some young players time to play. And, I'm sure they'll be ready to go, and their coach will have them ready to play their next game coming up.
Hoosick Valley has opened their season with 2 wins. John, they won the opener at home last week over Lennox, 69-45, and they were led in that one by their senior forward, Frank Field, who had 22. Aiden Wicks also had 21. And the sophomore, Quinell Bradley, at 16, with 12 in the second half. And they then came back on Monday night. They came back from an 8-point deficit in the fourth quarter this past Monday to defeat East Hampton 70-65. And they went to East Hampton and pulled that victory out. Again, Frank Field leading the way with 23 points. Quinell Bradley again with 14. Joey McGovern had 12. And they got 11 from their 8th grader, amazing, Trevor Moynihan, who actually, his brother played at East Hampton, but Trevor's playing at Hoosick Valley. So Hoosick Valley off to a 2-0 start. And they have a nice squad so far here, John. of course, Frank Field, he's very talented. He can play inside and outside.
Yeah, I mean, they have a very versatile team. We saw them play. I mean, I saw them play last year, end of the season, defeating Drury on Drury's court. And Frank Field's an impressive player. He almost had a triple-double last night on the road with 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists. And then you have Bradley, who's only a sophomore, but got a lot of valuable playing time last year with 14. And McGovern, obviously, is another veteran coming through with 12. So, Coach Robinson definitely has their offense cooking early in the season. I think 70 and 69 points the first 2 games. So, as a coach, sometimes you talk about, getting the rust off and getting ready to play. But these kids, they play a lot of basketball, and they come out in the opening of their season ready to go.
Yeah, and I know from the viewpoint of this Hoosick Valley team, they've got some experience in a couple of seniors in Frank Field and McGovern, and then they have that group of younger players, and they're going to mix together, and it seems like they're mixing pretty well together. They're getting good leadership from their seniors so
right,
far.
It's a nice balance where you got McGovern and Field, and you got those younger players with Wicks and Bradley and Hakes and Moynihan. So, I mean, this is a team that's had a lot of experience, even though they may have some younger players. And I think one thing I liked about them from last year I saw is they can play different styles, too. They can beat you with some half-court sets. They can get out and run. They're obviously always going to play defense. When you play for Coach Robinson, you're going to get on the court by playing defense first. And the style of play they're going to play is they're going to run the ball right down your throat if you're not getting back. And then they got scores in the half court, so they're hard to guard. They have 5 players that can put the ball in the hoop, and the more players you put on the basketball court that can score, the more difficult you are to guard, and that's one of the strengths, I think, of the Hoosick team this year, is they can put 5 kids on the court that can score every time they're out there.
Yeah, offense for the first time in a while isn't an issue for
Right.
he does have. I think he's going to have some size issues there. They're not a terribly big team, but putting the ball in the basket is not going to be their issue this year. It's the first time in a while where he's going to have some offensive firepower. The Blue Devils, John, are off to a great start as well. They're off to a 2-0 start, and they won their opener at home last week against Wacona. Always a tough task, 53-51. They trailed by 7 after 3 quarters. Wacona did, but Pat McLaughlin, a very talented player who had 31 points in that game, tied it up with only seconds remaining. But Drury got some balanced scoring in that one for junior Miles Beauchamp, who had 15, and Sam Mormon and Dante Dillard each added 14. And that was a nice win for the Blue Devils, John.
Yeah, Drury showed some good balance in their first 2 games. I mean, Wacona, anytime Drury-Wacona is always another one of those matchups.
Right.
You always look forward to watching those 2 teams play every year. For Drury to come out with their veteran group with Beauchamp hitting 5 threes to give him 15 and Dillard and Mormon with 14. That negated the 31-point night by McLaughlin. But, they really are showing some good tenacity on defense, too. I think, Coach Reset, again, another hard-nosed defensive coach, is going to make sure his players are ready to defend every possession.
Right.
45 points a game. I think I saw the quote by Sam Mormon talking about, Coach says we hold them under 50. That's a key point for them. And that's with some of the talent that they have. Again, some players that got good experience the last couple of years, playing in some tough quality games. That showed through by winning, a real. You usually play Wacona your first game of the year, but to come out and win that game at home in a close, hard-fought battle, that's a good start for their season.
It certainly is, and they followed that one up with a victory this week over Lee, down at Lee 67-40. Again, Donnie Dillard with a big game, 26 points. Jorge Bond had 14. Sam Mormon, 9 points and 15 rebounds. But they had that game well in hand. And they've actually got a big one tonight when they play Greenfield. It's a nice squad. That's going to be a great measuring stick for Drury. But so far, John, I think one of the big stories here for Drury, and I think for the season, is going to be Sam Mormon, the big senior. He looks great out there. We saw him in the Jamboree, and also got to look at him in that first game against Wacona. And he's playing playing well down low. Coach Reset has him down low, and I'll tell you, he's really come along. You can see his development, especially on the offensive end.
Yeah, he did some good things last year as a sophomore, but it seems like he's stepping up more offensively this year with 9 points in the win against Lee and then 14 in the win against Wacona. You talked a little bit about Huzik's size. He gives Drury a different element of size.
Yes.
That's really going to be helpful to them with those perimeter players like Bond and Dillard and Beauchamp who can fill it up from outside. So gives them a nice inside-outside game, and that's good balance. That's hard to cover as well. And again, you can put a player inside that can get double digits and rebounds every night and put double digits on the points as well and clean up some second chances. That gives Drury a whole different level on the inside in the paint, and then that gives them some second opportunities to get outside for the threes for their shooters.
Yeah, and much like Huzik Valley, looking early on, with Dante Dillard, Jorge Bond, just a freshman, very, very good shooter from the perimeter, John. He is a real threat, and if you lay off of him, he's going to take the shot, and I'll tell you, he's got a nice-looking shot for a freshman.
Yeah, so nice to have that confidence as a young player. I know Coach Reset's very high on him, and you pair him with some older players and Dillard and Beauchamp on the perimeter. It gives Drury some good opportunity. I think I saw Varelis also scored some points in the first game against Wacona. So they've got a good rotation of players that can score. And again, like we talked about with Huzik, when you put multiple players on the floor that can score, it makes a defensive game planning a lot more difficult for the opposing coach, because a lot of times as a high school coach trying to take away that top option or two, but if they have 3, 4, and 5 they can go to as well, it makes it that much more difficult to shut them down.
Right. And we also comment, we have a few minutes here, John. We want to talk a little bit about some observations you've made about the fact that it looks like on the scheduling wise, we're seeing a little bit more Berkshire County action between these Berkshire County teams, which is something that we've talked about last year. And it's nice to see that these teams don't have to travel as far away, and they're willing to play a little bit more Berkshire County basketball, which is great for the county.
Definitely. I think it's a nice that they've been able to schedule more Berkshire County games this year for the kids. I mean, as a longtime former coach and current administrator, one thing that always worried me about this state tournament wasn't proposed 4 years ago is that the kids are going to be on the road way too much in a bus and traveling all these distances on a school night to play games over the mountain or further. And there's nothing that really replicates that intensity of the Berkshire County games.
Right.
I know from being involved in it my younger days as a player at Drury, and then coaching at the high school as well as my time at McKeon. The intensity of playing against other Berkshire County teams is just a fun rivalry. The kids know each other, the coaches know each other, they know styles of play, and it's just, you go out in the court and you compete as hard as you can. At the end of the game, you shake hands and you support each other. And those battles within Berkshire County have been missing the last couple of years, I think. Just not enough of them. There's been still games here and there, but the games going over the mountain just don't. They're important, but they're not the same thing as when Drury plays Wacona or Huzik plays Wacona or whoever the Drury plays the Pittsfield schools. Those are all just great matchups, and they have a lot of tradition to them. And the South County teams, especially in girls at Monument and Lee, have such a great tradition. So I'm just really happy to see that the Berkshire County ADs have been able to schedule more games amongst the Berkshire County teams this year.
And the coaches, I think the Berkshire County coaches would prefer to play more games against Berkshire County schools. I mean, we comment all the time how wonderful it would be if we could go back to the old system and have both Huzik and Drury play each other twice a year, each at each other's gym. Those over the years have always been great events, not only for the fans, but for the players themselves and the kids in the school. It gives them a chance to come out and really support the schools. It's a great environment, and it's sad that those two teams only play each other one time each year. And of course, we'll be there to broadcast those games, but it's a loss, I think, and hopefully we'll get that back someday where the rivalries will be maintained.
I agree. Those experiences playing each other, the Drury Huzik games, the rivalry games, and within the county with the Lees versus Lennox and Monument, and those are all games that those kids look forward to. Those are their neighbors, a little bit of bragging rights. They play together on AAU teams, and so those are important to have those matchups during the season. And what they do. they also make the kids better.
Right.
They help them improve. They can measure themselves from where they were at the start of the year to the end of the year, or season to season. And it's just something that is a special quality of Berkshire County basketball, and it's just good to see it back more this year.
Right. And in high school many years ago, I had the opportunity to play in Hoosick Jury games in a variety of sports, and I got to tell you, those were the top highlights,
Right.
win or lose. Those were the highlights of my high school athletic career,
Definitely.
as limited as it was.
Right. You look back at those games, those are the ones you remember when you played or you
Right.
coached or whatever your involvement was. Those are the games you remember because those are the games that had a special feeling about them. And it's something that it's great that the adults are bringing that back for the kids this year.
Right. And speaking of games that we're going to be broadcasting, once again, tomorrow night we're going to be at Hoosick Valley to the high school game of the week, and that should be a dandy. South Hadley at Hoosick Valley. Those two teams have a lot of history over the last 10 to 15 years, and we'll be there to cover it, and we'll rebroadcast that game right here on channel 1302. Next week, as we've alluded to, we'll also be up at Drury High School, and next week's game of the week will be Mount Greylock, the Lady Mounties traveling to Drury to take on Drury, and the games last year were highly contested between those two teams, so that should be a dandy too. And of course, High School Basketball Weekly, you can see it every Thursday night at this time at 7:30. We rebroadcast High School Basketball Weekly on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock, and then we rebroadcast it Saturday evenings at 7 o'clock. So check your local listing, channel 1302 for High School Basketball Weekly and the rebroadcast of any games that we're going to be doing. I want to thank John Franzoni. You're going to be seeing John throughout the course of the year for joining us with his expert analysis on these games, as well as his analysis on games that he's going to be broadcasting with us. And so for John and myself, we'll see you next week on High School Basketball Weekly.